Stardust, Chapter 24, Avoidance. New Zealand declares martial law after riots break out during evacuation of Auckland. Cause of the riots determined to be several false reports of aliens hiding within the refugees, which resulted in several deaths before military and police intervention. Tabloids report disappearance of elderly retiree as evidence of government conspiracy. Sources cite retirees' self-described background with government agencies, as well as numerous mentions of outsiders and ethereals, but claims are dismissed by major news outlets as ramblings of a senile old man. 9:02 a.m. May 6, 2015. Barracks. They're late, Matt heard Lieutenant Trzymski mutter under his breath. Then he and the rest of the more experienced soldiers waited for the expected arrival of new recruits. They might be poached for the best military outfits in the world, but they're all gonna be new here, Matt offered solemnly, and he did his best to match the lieutenant's stare. Plus, they're gonna be from several different outfits and countries, so I suspect that there's gonna be a bit of confusion until everyone's on the same level. Paul's look eventually melted into something far more tired than Matt has ever seen on another man's face. You're right. Of course, I should thank you. By the way, after the others passed, both you and Zhang have really gone above and beyond. You're going to be in second command in the squad, so I'll need to rely on you to help herd the cats that are going to be sent our way, both on and off the battlefield. I'm on my duty, sir, Matt said with a nod as he accepted the praise and responsibility gratefully, though his expression became pained. I just wish that... Say no more, Paul interrupted with a pat on the shoulder and his tired look. I know exactly what you mean. I spoke with the doctors this morning and they say Lana might be up for visitors later today. You up for seeing her as soon as the FNGs are all, sorted out? I am not certain I would trust the group without one of us to supervise their adjustment to pace life, sir, Matt replied with an arched eyebrow. Paul's response wasn't what Matt anticipated. That's why I asked if you were up for visiting her. I'm sure with Zhang around we can manage the kids while you check on Lana. I won't ask about what happened between you two before the operation, but you really should resolve that with her if you can. In this line of work, you leave something important for later, and you might find that there isn't a later to address it. Understood, sir. He's right. Matt had to agree, especially after the news of Lana's condition reached the survivors of Strike 1. She had survived against all odds, but she's out of Strike 1 with her injury. We don't know what will happen to her as soon as she's healthy enough to move, but in all likelihood, she'll be moved to a place where she can recover. Someplace other than here. Well, glad to hear it, Paul said, before something resembling a smirk crawled onto his face. And, from what the doctors have told me, the first thing that she said when she regained consciousness was to ask if she got promoted. Imagine her dismay when her posthumous 2-rank promotion was knocked down to just 1 rank when she failed to stay dead. Matt couldn't help but chuckle. I might think that we were the terrible people for joking about such a thing, but something tells me that she'd approve. Hell, she probably told you to mention it, right? I can neither confirm nor deny that assertion. Well, at least she finally managed to escape the rank of private. If it weren't for her damn pranks, she'd be a sergeant at least by now. I suppose the betting pool will need to be awarded now. I'm sure the others... they're dead. Well, the others would be happy for her. Sympathy briefly crossed Paul's face before it was chased away by a more troubled expression. For all the trouble that she gave us, she will be missed. There is also another thing that I wanted to ask you about before the new folks get here. The other squad leaders and I received no orders from Commander Bradford that I'd like your opinion on. Well, sure thing. What exactly were the orders? Matt asked, and a small decree of trepidation creeped upon him as he noticed Paul take a moment to collect his thoughts. The orders detailed a change in SOP for aliens outside the already identified profiles, Paul explained in a quiet tone enough that was almost drowned out by a din of the barracks. Read between the lines, it seems to imply that there are aliens that are not allied with the invaders, and they might not be hostile to us. Damn your curiosity, Paul, Matt thought furiously as he struggled to keep something resembling a poker face in place. Damn it. When I spoke to you and Zhang after the operation, I was just talking out loud about some things, but now I'm kind of really starting to wonder. Paul crossed his arms and leaned back against the wall while pointedly not looking directly at his subordinate. That thing in Stardust, it isn't with the invaders, is it? It's neutral or cooperating, and it has friends that might be coming, right? I can neither confirm or deny. Suxin! Paul swore as he brought a hand up to pinch the bridge of his nose. That makes things complicated, doesn't it? Bad luck too. Wanders into a shooting war between us and the terrors of the void. That's damn brilliant. I suppose the only good luck was that you used your arc thrower instead of the rifle, yes? With every word that the lieutenant spoke, Matt found it harder and harder to maintain his poker face. Damn it, man, just drop it. Just tell me one thing, if nothing else, okay? Paul said after a long moment. Is it for real? Is it honestly something not related to the invaders? I wouldn't push so hard for this without a reason, and whatever you say stays with me, Matt. The reason I'm pushing that this far is after that last mission, the other squad leaders have voiced some concerns about the risks that these orders will bring to the teams. We're all here to do our duty or die trying, but you were there when Valen came up with her mad scientist plan to use glorified tasers to capture the aliens alive. You remember how folks reacted? I was there. I volunteered, as you may recall. You did, and you got serious brass for doing so, but you saw how the others reacted when the orders came down. None of the team leaders like forcing anyone into taking that kind of risk. The lieutenant just let out a sigh as he pinched the bridge of his nose again. Look, I'm not asking you to divulge the secrets of the lab. I just need to know that these orders won't be putting Strike 1 in harm's way without good reason. Matt found himself mirroring Paul's posture as he continued his words. The fact that he's talking this much is proof that this is bothering him a lot. What did Dad say about the sergeants? Lieutenants might drive the car, but sergeants carry the map. Without guidance and support, the whole squad is lost. I can't divulge the nature of any captives that may or may not be in XCOM's possessions at this time, Matt said slowly while he emphasized each word. Nor can I speculate upon the possibility of third parties that are unaffiliated to the current conflict attempting to retrieve said captive of dubious provenance. Lastly, cooperative captives are the purview of Dr. Moira Valen, and all requests should be forwarded to her for review. Paul looked over to Matt for the first time since the conversation started, and simply stared before resuming his previous pose. Thanks, he said simply as he mulled over the answers. Matt merely nodded before any further conversation was interrupted as the massive double doors on the other side of the room opened, and a rather varied group of soldiers trundled through and into the barracks common area. Alright, listen up! Fujikawa boomed as she hopped onto a bench to gather the attention of all the soldiers assembled into the room. For all of her skill at combat, she's still 5'2" with combat boots on, Matt thought as he looked over the crowd of new recruits. Average height of the new folks is over 5'10". She needs all the help that she can get. I'm sure you're all eager to get into the swing of things here, but before that happens, you'll be assigned to the strike teams. Lieutenant Paul Drzymski leads Strike 1. If you hear your name, you're assigned with Strike 1. Paul stepped forward to make himself obvious as the captain produced by a clipboard and began to rattle off a series of names in quick succession. Bapelanima, Blake Holly, Burns Clara, Carlock Patrick, Finch Jack, Sachs Robert, Suzuki Kaori, and Yamazaki Kato. That is for Strike 1. Next is... Matt turned to tune out the captain's voice as he surveyed the pack of recruits that now approached. 3 pairs appeared to sort themselves into the newcomers, while the last 2 remained separated from the rest. Probably national loyalties or armed service branches? Hell, they might have made friends while on the plane ride here. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, if you'll follow me. Paul motioned over his shoulder and turned towards one of the exits leading out of the barrack central area. It was only after the last of the new recruits passed that Matt turned to follow. The collection of soldiers followed the lieutenant as he made a few turns before they came to a stop in the bunk room normally used by Strike 1 and 2. Have a seat, Paul instructed, and the group situated themselves on bunks, benches, and the occasional chair around the room. Matt, however, leaned against the bunk and remained standing. Now, I'm all quite certain that you were given a speech about saving the world from the horrors of Beyond the Stars, so I'll spare you from having to listen to that again, Paul said as he turned around to address the group. You are all the best of your respective branches of service, and you distinguished yourselves in various ways that attracted this organization's attention. A significant amount of trust has been placed in each of you, and I expect you all to perform like the professionals I know you are. That means your best performance on the field, and your best behavior when not on duty. Understood? Yes, sir, came the somewhat uneven reply, and Matt could see Paul was sorely tempted to make them repeat it. Now then, some introductions are in order. Give your name, former branch of service, and why you're here, if you please. In case you may have forgotten, I'm Lieutenant Drzymski and I lead Strike 1. Former Spetsnaz, and I was part of the team that led an assault on a landed alien craft detected in the Chernobyl ruins. Captured it too, before both the craft and I were swept up into this organization. Paul stopped before pointing at one of the rookies, a man in his early 30s with tan skin and brown hair and eyes. You're next. Patrick Carlock, sir, retired United States Army engineer. Worked as a pipeline engineer in the 697th before resigning my commission. I got recruited after I found a series of sabotage attempts on domestic water supplies in the continental United States. I was going to be taken in for questioning on just what I found when the invaders decided they didn't want me answering those questions. I guess. The man gave a self-deprecating chuckle before continuing. I didn't want to be deadweight, so I volunteered for this. Paul's smile was genuine. You might not remember, but I was part of the team that retrieved you. You'll be a worthy addition to the team. The lieutenant's gaze fell upon the next person in line, a woman with dark skin and a shaved head. You're next. The introductions went on from the rest of the rookies. The dark-skinned woman named Nima Bapella was a survivor of a terror mission launched against the military base she was stationed at in her country. Both Kaido and Kaori gained XCOM's attention after they both racked up a respectable number of kills during an attempted abduction mission in rural Japan. Jack Finch and Clara Burns were poached from Britain's Special Air Service after they defused an alien bomb set to incinerate most of the Cardiff. Holly Blake was picked up after being reported MIA during an attack that obliterated an American base in Iraq, only for her to make her presence known to the relief forces after running out of ammo sniping the invaders. And you, sir, you are last, Paul said as he turned to face the last new addition. He looked old for a soldier, with skin that looked tanned like leather, and a garish set of scars across his jaw and neck that would give Zhang something to compare with. Robert Sachs, formerly with the Australian Tactical Assault Group. The man introduced with a gravely voice that was produced either from a lifetime of cigarettes or the injury that left the scars on his neck and jawline. And I think I was recruited because I took down one of those creepy bugs like any good Australian would. A moment of silence passed before he elaborated. With a knife. I call bullshit. Why would you draw a knife on one of those things? Kaido blurted out, and his disbelief was mirrored on just about everyone's faces. Robert replied without missing a beat. I was out of ammo and I bloody well wasn't going to use my teeth. Is that something you Australians do regularly? Take a knife to the demonic spiders that rain down from the sky? I bet that's where you got your scars, right? Carlock added, with the beginnings of a smirk spreading across his face. Again, Robert's reply came without hesitation. You've been to Australia lately? Damn demonic spiders are par for the course. As of the scars, you should see the other guy. After a long moment of silence passed between the assembled soldiers, before a slow smile began to creep onto the Australian's face, he began to laugh. I was reloading when the bloody bug jumped me, nearly took my jaw off with one claw. I just had enough time to draw my knife and stick it into the soft parts before he could finish me off. I think it was just trying to turn me into one of them at the time, so it let its guard down. Didn't turn down the lucky brick, so I stuck him and twisted until he stopped moving. Paul shared a smile with the scarred man. Well, so long as you're willing to use guns while with us instead of knifing every alien to death, I think I can live with that explanation. The lieutenant's gaze turned to Matt, and he realized that it was now his turn to introduce himself. I'm Sergeant Matt Harris, formerly... The Butcher? Jack Finch interrupted. Oh, I knew I recognized you. You were part of that botched U.S. Army hit squad that was sent down to track al-Masini in Iraq. Shot some kid and sent off the Civil War from there. From what I hear, they're still burning you in effigy in that part of the world. Matt's eyes narrowed slowly as he fixed to the Brit with a stare. The kid had a weapon and the intent to use it. I had to defend myself and my squad. Yeah. I heard you use that excuse on the news. What's funny is that your squad got themselves mostly killed without you... Mr. Finch! Paul hissed as he entered the conversation with all the subtlety of a battering ram. Sergeant Harris is my second in command, and I trust his judgments and decisions as though they were my own. If he says his actions were justified, then they were. Moreover, I am more willing to accept the account of someone who was there over the opinion of some rear echelon desk jockey or television celebrity. I would also think that as a fellow soldier, you would do the same. Jack's moral superiority and confidence faltered as the logic of Paul's words hit him, but Matt was too far lost in his own memories to notice. Now, this goes for all of you. Paul said as he fixed each and every one of the soldiers with a stare to emphasize the seriousness of his words. Each and every one of you thinks you're a badass, and you were before you got here, but you are nothing by yourselves. The aliens are coordinated and cunning to a degree that we cannot match without creating cohesive groups of our own. Our strength and survival depends upon our ability to become a cohesive group. From this moment on, I will not tolerate anything that undermines that goal. Am I clear? Yes, sir, came the ragged response. Paul's eyebrow twitched. Excuse me, what was that? Yes, sir! Very good. Now that we've finished that little bit of unpleasantness, there is one more introduction to make. Paul just looked at Matt's shoulder and gave a nod. Matt turned to see Zhang and seemingly materialized out of thin air behind and to his right. The sergeant had to resist the urge to jump at the realization. My name is Shayoji Zhang. My background is with the PLASOF, but it was my civilian work that attracted the attention of this organization. I was recruited shortly thereafter. What civilian work exactly? One of the recruits asked, a note of eagerness to put the previous subject out of mind clear in his voice. Acquisitions, Zhang explained with a cool smirk. During a job, I found myself in possession of something the aliens have left behind. So, I delivered it to XCOM instead of my employer at the time. As I was no longer employed afterward, I offered my services then, and here I am now. Thank you, Zhang, Paul said with a nod before he turned back to the recruits. You were all told this during your recruitment, but I feel it bears repeating. While the conflict continues, we are under a communications blackout, which means no signals in or out of the base. Operational security is paramount, but it also puts all of us currently here rather firmly in the dark as to what's going on outside. So, before we completely settle in, I'd like to know just how things are going in the world. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room before Sack spoke up. It's a goddamn mess out there. While I was in recovery, I heard that New Zealand's gone silent, and Australia is getting flooded with refugees that escaped from the islands. From what they say, the entire country has lost its mind. News is trying to spin, but once the dust settles, heads are gonna roll. I'm afraid I have to agree, Karlach added. There isn't panic on the streets yet, but there has been at least a dozen sabotage attempts on major installations all across the US. The waterworks sabotage that I was able to stop with XCOM's help would have destroyed a significant portion of our water treatment capacity east of the Mississippi. With the suspicious bridge collapsing that happened back in February, it isn't a stretch of the imagination to see a systematic attack on infrastructure that we are barely holding back. Kaido and Kaori shared a look before the former added his own information. I am afraid to admit it, but Japan is likely one disaster from anarchy. Everyone is polite and acts as though nothing is wrong, but you can see it in their eyes. They are scared. My family is on an extended vacation in Okinawa since they were worried about another attack on the capital. Kaori gave a worried look as she explained. From what I hear, just about everyone who can afford to is leaving the cities for the countryside. If people don't feel safe in the cities, then things are going to grind to a halt. Sounds like a properly British thing to do, Finch spoke, having regained his voice after Paul's lecture. Alien invasion? Keep calm and drink some tea until it goes away. He gave a self-deprecating chuckle before looking back onto the group. People are afraid to leave their homes. The royal family shows up every once in a while to ask for calm and composure, but everyone knows Parliament and the Prime Minister are squirreled away in a bunker somewhere while they leave the rest of the country to burn. God damn politicians, Sachs growled as he perfectly summarized Finch's explanation. With each report, Matt's expression fell bit by bit, and he couldn't help but notice the news having the same effect on Paul. That's worse than I thought. I hope my family is alright. Well, thanks for answering my question, even though it wasn't quite the answer I was hoping for, the lieutenant said after a long moment. You're all in the right place to make a difference against the invaders. You may have taken part in defensive operations where you were, but here you'll have a chance to strike back against the aliens. While you all get your bunks sorted, I'll regale you all on the tale of how we boarded and captured an alien ship mid-flight. The last comment spawned several doubtful responses and laughs as the group began to disperse. Paul caught Matt's eye and then looked pointedly to the door. Well, I guess it's time to bite the bullet.